One of the problems with making videos for League is that the game changes so often that information becomes outdated very quickly. This is one of the reasons why I don't make tier lists, because I know that a week after I release the video, things will change and the information will become irrelevant. It's also part of the reason why I stopped making champion guides, but so many people have been asking me to update my Blitz guide, and I know that's what a lot of you know me for, so I figured I would at least do that. This isn't going to be a full guide like my first video, but it will give you the fundamental knowledge you need to succeed on this champion. If you want to see a more in-depth video, feel free to check out my first Blitz guide. Just keep in mind that a lot of the information is outdated. Anyway, let's get into the guide. To start off, we'll go over masteries. Support has by far the most diverse set of masteries, and support players still haven't come to a general consensus on which tree is the best, utility or defense. If you all remember back to my video on support masteries, you'll remember that I said that the utility tree is pretty lackluster, but I've actually changed my stance on that. I think that both trees are good, but I actually favor the utility tree over the defensive tree for the most part. The biggest reasons why I like the utility tree include the extra potion level 1, the potion bonuses from Alchemist and Culinary Master, and the 5% move speed out of combat from Wanderer. So yes, while you do lose some combat stats, you gain something much more important during the laning phase, and that's sustained for level 1. Between the extra potion and potion buffing masteries, you get an extra 220 health and 20 mana at level 1, assuming you're starting with the Doran Shield, which, spoiler alert, is the best starting item at the moment. The extra sustain is crucial to winning the push war early on, and if you lose the push war, you lose momentum for the first 5 minutes of the game. Of course, extra gold generation CDR is nice as well, but the real selling point is extra roaming potential and extra sustain at level 1. Next up are runes, and just like masteries, supports haven't really come to a general consensus on what's best. The first page is what I use against Annie, Leona, or other heavy magic damage supports. It's a pretty standard page and isn't too much different from what I showed you guys in the previous Blitz guide. 80 marks are good because Blitz has an auto attack reset with his Power Fist, plus his Power Fist doubles his attack damage. So in a series of auto, Power Fist, auto, 8.5 extra damage nets you an extra 34 damage. Plus don't forget he has an attack speed steroid as well, so the damage just continues to rack up as the team fight goes on. As for seals, armor works wonders against champions that do primarily physical damage. Imagine that. And on that same token, MR blues work really well against high burst magical damage like Annie, Leona, or other magic damage supports. 2 health quints because health is one of the best sources of effective health in the early game, and 1 armor quint because it makes up for not running armor reds. The next page is exactly the same except I run mana regeneration blues. I use this page if I don't have to worry about taking a huge amount of magic damage in lane because mana regeneration allows Blitz to fish for more hooks, and its mana costs are actually quite high. Now we'll move into item builds, which is where things get a lot less concrete and a lot more situational. As far as starting items go, Doran Shield is typically your best bet just because the item is so insanely cost efficient. The stats alone are worth 624 gold, and then you have to consider the ridiculous passive that it has as well. The only time I'll consider starting something else is if I'm laning against a passive support like Soraka or Janna and don't feel I need the extra combat stats, in which case I would start with the Ancient Coin. After starting items, things get a little bit more interesting because, unlike most other roles in the game, your purchases on support rely heavily on the gold you back with. So instead of laying out a concrete build path, I'm just going to tell you all the items that you should be getting eventually, and then I'll talk about different situations that you'll be put into. Generally speaking, you'll be getting mobility boots, sightstone, and Shirelias pretty much every game. Everything else is completely situational, but these are going to be your 3 core items, so let's talk a bit about priorities. In a losing lane or burst lane, you want to prioritize health crystal over medallion, over boots 1, over sightstone, over Shirelias, over mobility boots. If you're playing against an Annie or Leona, you're typically going to want the extra health over anything else just so you're able to survive the lane. In a winning lane, you want to prioritize medallion over health crystal, over Shirelias, over boots 1, over mobility boots, over sightstone. If you're already winning, there's no sense in investing in more health. You might as well go for the extra gold generation and easier playmaking with Shirelias. If for whatever reason you kill the enemy tower early on because you're crushing lane that hard, consider picking up an earlier mobility boots just to make your presence known around the map. For trinkets, you want to keep the warding trinket until you pick up sightstone, and then you can go ahead and swap over to the sweeping lens. You'll want to upgrade your sweeping lens at some point after level 9, generally when you back with a convenient amount of gold. Keep in mind that all these purchases are also reliant on the gold you back with, so don't tunnel too hard on my priority list and make sure to buy smart. As far as late game items go, just look to buy tanky items like Sunfire, Randuin's, or Spirit Visage depending on the situation. Support items like Zeke's, Mikhail's, or Locket are useful in specific situations, but I generally prefer to pick up tank items instead. Next up is skill order, which hasn't changed since my last video. Max Rocket Grab for the extra damage and lower cooldown, Overdrive next for better roaming, and Power Fist last because the damage is static, and 1 second less cooldown isn't enough to justify maxing it second. As far as how to play Blitz, nothing has really changed. The Oracle's removal did hurt him a little bit, but because there are generally less wards on the map now, it's become a lot easier to make picks in solo queue. I still think that he has a weak laning phase because he's not able to push as hard as other supports, but there's always potential to outplay with Blitz. I prefer to play Blitz with burst AD carries like Jinx, Ezreal, Lucian, or Graves, So basically what the meta is right now. I think Jinx works the best simply because she can trap after the hook and knock up, which leads to an extremely long CC chain, similar to how Thresh Jinx works. I'm not going to go in depth on how to play him because I already have a video about that, but hopefully this video was a sufficient enough update for you all that wanted it. If you haven't seen my first video and want to know some tricks, I'll have an annotation somewhere on the screen right now in case you want to go check it out. If you guys like the layout of this guide, I might make more guides like this in the future, so just let me know what you'd like to see. Obviously, if I make more champion guides, I'll put in some tricks for those specific champions as well, but it seemed a bit redundant on this one. Anyway, that's it for this video. As always, thank you all for watching, good luck in your games, and I'll see you all next time.